Welcome back to The Wedding Buzz. It's your host, Sydney, and today I am so excited to introduce my guest, Emily. She is a live watercolor event painter. You have to check out her website and her Instagram because her paintings are incredible, and I can't believe she does them live at weddings. And I'm so excited because if you're watching on YouTube or the video of this, she's going to do a live painting today, and I'm so excited. She also walked in and was like, so do you have any pets? Because I was thinking maybe I could paint one of your pets. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I have lots of pets. And I have 2 rabbits. And one of them is a lion head rabbit. And he looks like a little snow monster. And his name is Yeti. So she is about to paint my rabbit, which I'm like, how are you going to do this so fast? And I'm so excited. But more importantly, she does paintings of brides and grooms and paintings of your wedding, which is more why she's here today. But anyway, welcome to the podcast, Emily. I'm so excited that you're here.
Yes, thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm super excited to be here.
Sorry, my intro got a little sidetracked with me talking about my rabbit, but...
No, I love it. Your rabbit deserves the best intro. I mean... Yeah. I've never seen a fluffier rabbit out there, so I'm really excited to paint today.
He's very, very fluffy. Well, anyway, let's talk about you and your business. And I know it's probably going to be a little hard to talk and paint at the same time, but that's okay. I'm just very intrigued and excited to watch you do this. So tell me about yourself and your business. How did you get started?
Well, I would say I got started with my art career when I lost my portfolio of about 7 years worth of my work that I hadn't sold. I was just so upset because I was like, why didn't I do anything with that? It just went to my portfolio to die. And even though I might only see this as a hobby, other people could have appreciated this work. So from that point, I got this vengeance to go and sell my art. And it really started out with me painting pet portraits live at the local dog bar that's around here where people bring their dogs and check them in and stick around and have beer. And that kind of just transpired into larger outdoor paintings and ultimately live painting, which is where I've ended up today. I just think that events are some of the best places to do live painting because they are so alive with energy and vibrant colors, and you have beautiful backdrops and beautiful dresses. And recording that memory live and maybe not actually being able to capture you can capture a still moment from a living scene. And that just fascinated me and was a really nice, fun challenge. And I've kind of made it my life from there.
That's awesome. And I love the animal thing and doing it at like a dog bar, or a dog friendly bar is such a cute thing. I'm sure people were like so excited about that. So if someone's debating whether they want to hire a live painter, I mean, in general, but specifically, this is the wedding buzz. So if a bride or a groom really wants to have a live painter at their wedding, what are some things that they should know? Like what kind of goes into having a live painter at your wedding?
Live painters are, or at least from my end, are very easy to implement because they kind of fit in with the mix of whatever party you have going on and are there almost essentially as a stationary photographer. Your photographers are going around like ninjas capturing the moment in the behind the scenes, whereas the live painter is now a feature element of the event where people can enjoy as the moment is being captured. So it integrates very well because I have a really small setup and I just take cues from you about the type of painting you want to see and the color scheme that you'd like me to capture and just go to work. It can really be implemented even as a last step. If you're looking for something like, dang, I wish I just had one more creative thing to tack on to the end, live painters can really easily come in at the end.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, it's cool that you don't, you're kind of like in your own little bubble. Like there's not much that you need. You bring your own setup. And I feel like it serves multiple purposes because obviously you get that piece of art that you can hold on to forever. And it's kind of cool, even just like you and your spouse knowing like, hey, that was painted live at our wedding. And then there's an entertainment factor. Like I love entertaining guests. And as a planner, I always suggest that during the reception, after about an hour of people dancing, they get tired and they need, to sit down, or they need something else to keep their focus and keep the energy up. And so I love throwing in different entertainment factors. Now you don't want to like totally distract people and bring them all over the place, but I do love I'm sure that people just like to stand there and kind of watch you paint for a little bit. When you're at a wedding, are you typically like near the dance floor or like far away? Like where do you like to be set up?
I think in the reception, it's a happy medium of being out of the way, but having the perfect vantage point or viewpoint of the party itself. Because whether I'm capturing the first dance and having to use the organic room to fill the composition, or I'm painting from a photograph, having that vantage point allows me to capture the essence of the moment on the page, and also makes it where people enjoy the party, and as they're passing around that part of the room, have something to enjoy out of the way. I know some people who maybe are getting a little too old to dance, the night away, might come over and sit behind me and watch as I paint. Also, a lot of people are enthusiastic models. They'll come over and say, hey, can you paint me? And so long as it's okay beforehand, I'll be able to put a little abstract figure in the painting, and they can kind of tell that it's them. So
that's so funny. People are so like, it never seems to, like, I'm always like, I don't know. People just crack me up at how bold they are. Like, hey, can you paint me? Like,
oh, yes. That is the number one request that I get.
Like, can I be in it? That's so funny. How do you decide like what to paint? You kind of were just touching on it of like, if you're painting the first dance, like, do you truly like look at the scene and just paint as you go? Or do you like on your phone take a picture of the room and then kind of reference that?
Well, it's actually totally up to what the bride wants. Every consultation call that I have is a total custom exploration of what your night's going to look like. I've had people who want solely from the photo, for example, a first look when they first see each other, or them up at the altar. That ceremony might be very brief, so I do need to work from a photo there. But at the reception, I also can paint from the live scene and have willing volunteers to be my models in the background if they're interested. And one of my favorites is when you do paint the first dance, I can actually start by painting the venue before people are arriving. As they're arriving, paint them into the scene, and then leave a space in the middle where from a still image, I can superimpose that dip in the dance, or that special moment in the dance, and use that still image on one part. So it's kind of like being a human Photoshop, where I can really do anything you want. I can even include loved ones who might not have been able to be there for whatever reason.
Oh, that's really cool. How big are your paintings typically?
They range in size. The smallest one is a 18 by 20. And then they go up to a 20 by 30. But I can also do larger sizes if they're discussed in advance. The nice thing about those sizes are, one is it would fit nicely in a living room, and another one would fit nicely over a headboard per se. So they're two nice standard sizes that are going to fill up a wall space without being so large that they're overtaking a space and becoming a burden, especially as you might be moving into a new home or anything like that.
Gotcha. That's very cool. I know that you choose watercolor, and I was going to ask why watercolor, do you like specifically focus on watercolor?
Watercolor was always something that I was drawn to from childhood. I think it was because art is a messy hobby, and I was obviously told by my parents that, you got to clean up. So when I was a little kid, my strategy was, well, if I make the least amount of mess in the process of doing my art, then the cleanup will be very easy. And so the first time I tried watercolor, I realized, wow, even if my paints dry out, I can use them again. And I just fold up this little paint palette, and then I'm done, get on the move. So it was partially out of the convenience, but then even from my very first watercolor painting, it was apparent that I had, I guess, an affinity for it. And it was a no-brainer at that point to make it my primary medium.
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm watching you do it, and like, it's really not that like messy. You just have your little kit, your water, your brush. And I'm sure like that's good at a wedding, because you don't want like paint all over you and making a whole mess.
That is another thing to consider when having a live painter, is because I am a watercolor painter, my setup is much smaller than other painters. A lot of them either need to put down a tarp or wear a smock, and I'm never going to turn it into a whole art scene. I always I try to dress the part to whatever color scheme you got going on. I have lots of ball gowns that I've sort of collected because I love to wear them. And it really makes a classy little expose.
I like that. It is a classy expose. So I know at a wedding, like weddings can be hours long, but like how long do these paintings normally take you? Are you there all night, or is it like just an hour?
I allot the whole night to be there. I actually offer up to 8 hours of painting time. And the reason I do that is because I like to include the time for setup. And it's really my promise that I'm going to stay until I get the job done. And usually a painting, especially the smaller size, will usually take about 4.5 to 5 hours, and that larger one will usually take a little over 5 hours. Just because in that larger one, I'm using the same size brushes, and so I'm actually able to incorporate a little bit more detail in that larger one, which takes some more time to achieve.
Gotcha. So you are there like most of the wedding, which is cool because it like ties into that entertainment factor. It's not like, oh, there was a painter here and she finished real quick and she's gone. Like, people can watch the process. I'm sure people love, like, they're going to the bar to get a drink and then they stop by you and they see like, oh my gosh, like you've done so much.
Yeah. And when they're getting tired, they can come watch and chill and hang out, and maybe they'll even stick around a little longer to see how it's turning out.
To see how it's turning out. Very cool. So I do ask everyone that's on the podcast, do you have any wedding day horror stories?
I've been very fortunate along the way so far. And because I am a little bit more of a add-on kind of independent feature, there's very little that I'm involved with when it comes to the planning. I mean, I feel like many things could start coming down around me and I would just sit there and keep painting. And that's one thing that everybody can sort of count on. But as for wedding horror stories, I don't know if I've had one.
That's
yet.
Probably a good thing if you don't have one. That's a good thing. And I mean, that is true. You don't get roped into the chaos so much of the wedding day. You're like, I'm going to be in my corner here and paint. That's fun. I was going to ask you, so you're based in like West Palm Beach, Florida?
Yes.
And do you like, how far will you go for weddings and events?
I right now I'm all over South Florida. So even if you're in Miami, and I kind of am setting my distance right now at 2 hours for travel. And I'm looking this year to incorporate more destination weddings because I'm starting to get some requests for those. And I'm working out those packages because I think one thing that would be really interesting to include is if there were a destination package that I might come and paint for multiple days, do a painting every day or a couple paintings every day, and make the excursion into an entire series. But that's definitely down the road. But I'm always open to hearing anybody's ideas or suggestions and talking about them.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, some of that, like, you'll just, figure out as you go. But I used to think that too. I literally had a conversation with my sister today because I had an inquiry with a new bride who is not super destination, but a few hours away. And she was like, why? Sisters are sisters. I love my sister, but typical sister. She was like, why would she pick you if you're far away? Like, cause she, obviously I guess feels comfortable with me and relates to me and is like willing to ask me to travel a little bit to have me at her wedding day, which, I always say brides need to feel, well, everyone, brides, grooms, everyone needs to feel extremely comfortable and happy with their vendors. Hey,
it might have something to do with the approachability of your podcast. I feel like
maybe I need to ask her. Maybe I should straight up ask her, why do you want me to come?
You'll never know unless you ask.
That's funny. But yeah, I mean, I can totally see people being willing to pay for a travel fee for you to do this because I feel like there's not that many live painters around.
That is the thing is it's a growing market right now. People have seen it online and they've seen it in their feed and they just have no idea how to access it. So it's on us to really educate people about how they too can have this. And even as the industry grows, it's never, I feel like it's always going to stay relatively collaborative because artists have different styles. I mean, I myself am a watercolor painter. So that already makes me different than 90% of the other watercolor or the other painters out there just because they do acrylic or oil.
Right. And I can see that. I say this with photographers, like when a bride and groom is picking their photographer, you need to look at their style of photos. Do they edit very warm? Do they like put the saturation high? Are they very washed out? Are a lot of their photos like black and white? What is their style? And they might be extremely talented, but like you might not like their style. And I feel like that's kind of with painters too. Like, how do you talk to the brides and the grooms about like whether they want like a really vibrant painting or even like abstract of like, to add colors that in real life aren't there? How do you figure that out? Like, do you talk to the couples about that?
Yes. So I always will do a consultation call with anybody who is thinking about working. We're thinking about working together. And the reason for that is to answer questions just like that. And I remind people that I'm pretty good at style mimicry. And people will often ask, can you do souvenir size portraits? And the answer to that is yes. While I can do one large portrait, I can also do a bunch of small ones. And those can even come in two different styles where I have a very realistic facial portrait that I can do of someone in about 10 minutes. But also what people sometimes prefer is a sort of runway style watercolor, where it might have the guest couple featured where you don't see their face clearly, but you can see their outfit and their hair, and they know who they are, and they get to take home that souvenir gift. So it's very versatile and flexible, and I'm lucky to have had experience with other styles and mediums, just trying to figure out my own. And so I'm always willing. I love it when people send me references, you know, even if they can go online and say, I love this style. Do you think you can do it? We'll always have an honest conversation about whether or not I'm going to be able to make you happy.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, sending reference photos, I feel like with everything, I mean, even as the planner, I'm like, send me what you're expecting. I did,
Go to Pinterest.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a bridal shower a couple months ago, and they wanted it to be a Greek boho shower. And I will be so honest that at first I was like, okay, like, I was like, what is Greek boho? But then she sent me pictures, and I was like, oh, that's really, really cute. It was like boho. I guess it's self-explanatory. It was kind of boho, but they were Greek, and we tied in some Greek elements. But they showed me pictures, and we, you know,
made it work.
Yeah, mirrored the pictures and made it work, and it ended up being really fun and really cute. So I can definitely see with you. You're like, give me pictures of what you want, and that's going to be, you know, the best bet of making sure that they end up getting a painting that they're like super happy with.
The nice thing too is people really do love art for art's sake a lot of times, and they'll almost give me the reins in the regard of the composition and where I want to sit and that sort of thing, because they want the best painting out of it, the brides. And so in giving me a little bit of creative freedom, it adds a little bit of surprise element to the painting as well. And I'm always going to listen to your favorite details. So even if you don't give me an exact composition, you don't really know, I'll be able to capture, you know, well, you really want your bouquet in there, or you really want your doggy in there. And we'll be able to make sure that those are added, even if we don't have them all in the same picture even.
Yeah, that's cool. You can create your own picture.
Yes.
I know that you touched on like getting into this because you know, felt like your portfolio, like no one was seeing it and you wanted to explore, but how did you just start painting as a kid? Like, did you just end up falling in love with it, or how did you get so good at it?
I was an only child, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I would just go around and my mom, ironically, she was an art major in college and became a doctor. So we just had some art supplies around, and I would always play around in them. And I was actually much more interested in science as a kid, and I got into art because I wanted to draw from anatomy books.
Oh.
And so that actually, ironically, ended up being the best thing that I could have done, because most animals have similar bone structures, if that makes any sense. So I can, even if I don't exactly know how to draw a giraffe, I'm like, okay, it's got 4 legs, a neck, and a head. It's just an extendo horse,
Yeah.
you know?
An extendo horse. That's funny. No, but that is true. I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about it from like that perspective of looking at the bone structure and the anatomy. And I'm sure that helps you. And I guess over the years, you've kind of learned like how to draw a nose, and then you can look at the animal or look at that person and like tweak what you know to make it look more like them.
Right. And it just becomes a shifting of proportions, and you really notice, because if you put the shapes that you know how to draw in the right place, it's going to come out looking mostly like the thing you're drawing, even if it's not exactly perfect. And one thing about watercolor that not a lot of people know is it's a little bit more forgiving than people think, because you can't actually pick up watercolor off of the page. Now, you can't get it completely gone, but you can work with the very subtle features, and that's why I love it so much, is it's very much about subtlety. And people will see me painting with watercolor, and they're like, oh my gosh, you're putting so much paint down. And I'm like, wait. watch this. And I take a paper towel and I start picking it up, and it creates like a nice ambient pattern. So
ambient pattern. Very cool. Very cool. I know when we first met, you mentioned something about economics.
Yes. I majored in economics. So while my mom was...
You're literally the opposite of your mom. Like, she majored in art and became a doctor, and you majored in economics, and now you're an artist?
Yes, that's pretty much exactly right. And now we're kind of becoming a lot closer because of all this, and she's living a little vicariously through me now that I'm doing art. But I really strongly resisted the artist path for a long time. Simply because I never liked being pigeonholed as the art girl. I would always be the one to do the PowerPoint, or even when I graduated and got out into the regular corporate world, I was in strategic operations for a while, working with a lot of startups and other businesses. And I found that a lot of my other skills were overlooked for art. And as much as this frustrated me, I realized I actually heard this great podcast that talked about the artist identity and how a lot of artists don't want to be artists because they have this idea that the collective identity of the artist is the starving artist, the flaky, but then you don't have to be that.
No.
And you can go and create your own artist identity. And I was like, well, I'm out here in the world now. I don't have the training wheels of the education system on me anymore. And it kind of got to be like, I'm going to do the only thing I really know how to do.
Yeah.
But now since I went to college and majored in economics, I can put it within this business framework, and hopefully one day even make the system that I'm putting together and hoping to be successful with, make it something that can be replicatable by other artists who may not have had that background or don't even know where to start, and create some kind of platform for them to.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, I feel you. I play guitar and I like to sing. And when I was in high school, I was like, I want to be Taylor Swift.
Yes.
Now I'm definitely not good enough to become an actual artist. But kind of that same thing of like, I was like, well, I can't go to college and like major in music. I don't want to be a starving artist. Like I don't want to not make it. And, hindsight is whatever. And I ended up where I'm supposed to be. I actually feel like, cause I'm not artsy and as good as you, but I am definitely like an artsy person. And but then I went to college and I got my master's in project management, and now I'm like, okay, cool. Like weddings, I get to tie in my like pretty sparkly, fun, artsy side, but then my business side and manage this big project, which I love. And so I love hearing that for you, that, you can do what you love. You can do art, and you don't have to be that starving artist or, whatever the box of what people would say an artist typically is. Like, you can totally make it your own thing, and you're an entrepreneur, you have your own business. Like, it's so cool, and it's not easy to do. I
think a lot of the terrain of art has also been changed by social media, because it's removed a lot of the gatekeepers that did create some of this starving artist stereotype. Because just like actors out in Hollywood, unless you're either going to make money in this lifetime or you're going to make money in the next lifetime as an artist. So for me, it was initially about cash flow. And when I was in the 9th grade, I started up the pet portrait business. And it actually got so popular during my exam season that I was like, okay, no more of this. And so when I came back to it, I was like, well, if I could have a pet portrait business in the 9th grade, like, I'm sure I could start there and grow it into something else, just to see my art doing the work,
Yeah, no, it's so cool.
And give me confidence.
And like, I know social media these days definitely has some like negative to it, but it also has some positive, kind of like what you were saying, is like, it opens people's eyes to what art really can be and what a career in art could be. And then also from the bride and groom perspective is like people all over the place can find you and, you know, say like, hey, I want her at my wedding. And you know, their options aren't just limited to whatever like magazine they see of their local area. Like they really can explore and find really cool things for their wedding that are unique and different. So I also ask everyone on the podcast, what is one piece of advice you want to give? It could be anything, marriage, wedding day, art advice.
Okay. I think my piece of advice would probably be for people who don't think that they are creative anymore. Because one of the number one things that people say to me when I'm drawing is, well, I used to do this, but I don't really do art anymore, or I'm just not as good as that. But the thing is, creativity, like the best art is more like a diary entry than it is a piece of commerce. Because when you start making something that people will like, or that you think people will like, rather, it's never going to be as sincere as something that you truly see. And so, although I'm marketing the wedding paintings because I think people will like those, I'm trying to tell the story of whoever's asking for that painting. Or the reason why I like doing them live is to make it my diary entry of me experiencing that moment. And maybe because I'm from an outside perspective, it's a different kind of experience. So my advice to anybody who thinks that they've lost the artistic muscle is that it is a muscle. It's still there, and that you should work it for yourself and nobody else.
I like that. I do really like that. I feel like I need that advice because I definitely, like I said, I used to play guitar and sing like every day in high school. I played violin, and now I don't pick it up. I used to paint too. I mean, not amazingly, but I used to paint like all the time too. And guess who never does any of I actually, around Christmas, I saw a TikTok of this girl painting her her glass shower doors and her windows in her house. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. My husband was working till like 9:00 that night. So, you know, what am I going to do is destroy the house. And I painted like the Grinch and stuff on our window, and he came home and was half like, oh my God, what is she doing now? But he also was like, you can paint. And I was like, yeah, I told you I'd like went to an art studio like after school and high school all the time. But, you know, I don't think he ever really like thought about it. And I guess I've never shown him like any of my paintings and stuff. I don't know. It just made me.
Well, that's really cool.
It made me feel, I was like, wait, like I used to, you know, play guitar and sing and paint and like be creative. But then you go to college and it's like, what's your career? And that's what you focus on. And that's what everything goes to. And although those things are important, and that is most of my life is focusing on growing my business. I like when I was painting just the stupid Christmas painting and stuff, I was like, I feel like me again. Like, even if it's not that good, like it's just for me. Like it was so fun. So I really like that piece of advice. And I think I need that piece of advice of just be creative for me. It doesn't have to be anything.
Exactly. I'm glad that was helpful.
Yeah, I really like it. Well, this has been really cool. And I am amazed by this painting.
I think I'm done.
Are you done?
Do one thing to the eye.
Okay. Well, before we do the reveal, where can listeners find you?
Okay. You can find me on Instagram at Ren Art Live, which is RenArtLive. And my email and my phone number are on my website, which is renartlive.com. And those are really the best places. I have a Facebook, but it's not very populated yet, but we're getting there. So that's
Very cool.
That's everything.
Well, if you guys are in South Florida or possibly anywhere and you want a live painter, definitely contact her because she is amazing. And if you're watching the video of this, come take a look at my rabbit because it's so cool.
Should I hold it up?
Yeah, show the camera. Look how good. Guys, she just did this so fast. Producer Chris is giving us a round of applause. Giving her a round of applause, not me. Can you show them like the actual picture?
Oh,
like
yeah.
It literally looks not just like a rabbit. It looks like my rabbit, who is a messy little furry guy. That's so good.
Yes, I would love to come paint anybody's event or wedding or bridal shower or anything.
Anything.
I'm always looking for more things to add to the catalog and the website too. I mean, creativity comes from inspiration from others. So
yeah,
even if you just want to talk.
When I was driving here, I was talking to my mom and I was like, I think she's going to do a live painting. And she was like, what? A painting of what? And I was like, I don't know. And I literally am going to call her and be like, she painted Yeti.
Yep. And you get to take it home. So
yay. I'm so excited. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. This is so fun. And I love this. I keep saying it over and over again, but I just love it. So thank you for coming. You guys hire Emily.
Thank you. It was so much fun.